It began subtly, as these things often do. A feeling more than a concrete event, a prickling on the back of my neck when I was alone in my apartment. I tried to dismiss it as city paranoia, the natural unease of living in close proximity to strangers. But it persisted, a quiet hum beneath the surface of my days. Then Owen moved in next door. He seemed pleasant enough at first, quiet, polite, with a ready smile and eyes that seemed to take everything in. He'd make small talk in the hallway, comment on the weather, or ask about my day. His attention felt harmless, just a new neighbor being friendly. But there was something in his gaze, a lingering quality that felt a little too observant. He noticed things, small things. He'd mention a new plant on my windowsill or a change in my routine, details I hadn't consciously registered myself. He remembered conversations we hadn't had, or details I was certain I'd never shared with him. It was like he had access to my thoughts. The initial unease began to sharpen into something more defined. I started questioning his intentions, the source of his uncanny knowledge. The feeling of being watched intensified, no longer just a vague sensation but tied to a specific person. My new neighbor. The tension ratcheted up slowly, then suddenly snapped. It was a Tuesday afternoon, I think. I was getting groceries out of my car. I glanced up at my building and saw him, Owen, standing by his window, holding his phone. He wasn't just looking. He was aiming the phone directly at me. I saw the glint of the lens. He was taking a picture of me, without my knowledge or permission. That moment was the turning point. The subtle creepiness solidified into something undeniably unsettling, terrifying. The mask of the polite neighbor slipped, revealing something predatory underneath. My blood ran cold. A few days later, a package appeared on my doorstep. No name, no return address, just my apartment number. Inside was a book. A rare first edition of a novel I'd mentioned loving years ago. A book I'd searched for, but never found. It was a gift I never asked for, never hinted at wanting from him. How could he possibly know about it? The book wasn't a kindness, it was a message. It solidified the feeling of being watched, of my life being meticulously observed and manipulated. He knew my desires, my history, my private world. And he was using that knowledge to insert himself into it. I tried to distance myself. I stopped making small talk in the hallway. I avoided eye contact. I started locking my door the moment I stepped inside. I changed my route to work, varied my grocery store visits. I tried to make myself less predictable, less accessible. The fear was a constant companion now, a knot in my stomach that never loosened. Every shadow seemed to hide him. One evening, I found the courage to confront him. I stood outside his door, my heart pounding, and demanded to know why he was watching me. He denied everything. His eyes were wide with feigned innocence. He acted hurt, confused by my accusations. Then his expression shifted. A chillingly possessive look crossed his face. He told me he just cared about me, that he was looking out for me. His words were meant to soothe, but they felt like a cage closing around me. His declaration of care was a declaration of ownership. My fear and paranoia were palpable now, consuming my thoughts. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep properly. I knew I had to report him. I went to the police, explained everything. The photo, the book, the feeling of being watched, his strange knowledge. They listened patiently, took notes. But there was nothing concrete, they said. No direct threat, no physical harm. My report was met with inaction. They couldn't do anything based on suspicion and a feeling. This helplessness amplified my sense of vulnerability. The system couldn't protect me. I was on my own. The only option left was escape. I made the difficult decision to move, to leave my home, my neighborhood, everything familiar behind. I hoped a fresh start, a new city, would offer a clean break. Moving felt like a desperate act of self-preservation. It offered a brief respite, a false sense of security in the anonymity of a new place. I dared to hope for resolution, for escape. The story, my story, didn't end with the move. It only entered a new, more terrifying chapter. I settled into my new apartment, found a new job. I started to breathe a little easier, the constant tension beginning to fade. Then it arrived, at my new job, an envelope left on my desk. Inside was a photograph, a picture of me, standing outside my new apartment building. The illusion of safety shattered instantly. He knew where I was. He had followed me. My face in the photo was circled in red ink, a target. Panic seized me. How? How had he found me? I had been so careful. A few days later, I found something else. Tucked away in a box I hadn't fully unpacked. A box I was certain I had sealed myself. It was a flash drive. Curiosity warred with dread, but I had to know. I plugged it into my computer. What I saw on the screen made me physically recoil. Footage, hours of it, filmed through my window, of me, sleeping, unaware, vulnerable. It was Owen watching me sleep in my new apartment. This was a truly terrifying moment, a violation so profound it stole my breath. The footage solidified the depth of Owen's obsession. This wasn't just a neighbor. This was a predator who had made me his sole focus. A year passed after the discovery of the flash drive. A year of silence. No photos, no packages, no sign of him. I started to believe, foolishly, that it was over. That he had moved on, or been caught, or simply given up. I began to rebuild my life, piece by agonizing piece. The fear receded, replaced by a cautious optimism. I even started a new relationship. He was kind, understanding, everything Owen wasn't. One evening, my new boyfriend was leaving my apartment. We said goodnight on my porch. The next morning, I found something tucked into the railing of the porch. A small, square photograph. A Polaroid. It was a picture of my date, standing on my porch, saying goodbye to me. And in the background, just visible in the shadows beneath the porch light, was Owen. He was watching, and he was holding a knife. This was a gut-wrenching revelation. He hadn't been gone. He had been waiting, watching me rebuild, only to tear it all down. Then I saw it. Tucked beneath the Polaroid, a folded piece of paper. A note, in Owen's familiar, neat handwriting. It was a chillingly possessive message. A declaration that I belonged to him, that he would never let me go. The note confirmed my horrifying realization. Owen had been orchestrating everything. The silence, the false sense of security, my new relationship. He had allowed me a brief taste of freedom, only to snatch it away in the most brutal way possible. I was trapped in a nightmare I couldn't escape. He was always there, always watching, always waiting. The story leaves a lingering sense of dread, a cold certainty that some horrors don't end. The horrifying realization settles deep in my bones. The stalker is always closer than you think. It started subtly, almost innocuously. A note tucked into my mailbox, handwritten on thick, cream-colored paper. It spoke of admiration, of noticing the small things. I remember smiling, thinking it was a sweet, if slightly old-fashioned gesture. Just a secret admirer, I told myself. Harmless. More notes followed, appearing in unexpected places. Tucked into my car door handle, left on my desk at work when I stepped away. The frequency increased. The words shifted too. The admiration remained, but a possessiveness began to creep in. A sense of entitlement to my attention. I started to feel a prickle of unease. The anonymity, which had initially felt romantic, now felt like a shroud. A hidden gaze. The messages stopped being vague. They became specific, unnervingly so. Details only someone who watched me closely could know. They mentioned the book I was reading, the coffee shop I visited every Tuesday morning, the way I always checked my reflection before leaving the apartment. My routines were laid bare. Then came the deeper cuts. References to fears I had only ever whispered to myself in the dark. Things I hadn't shared with anyone. How could they know? The question became a constant hum beneath my thoughts. It felt like my mind wasn't my own anymore. The notes were just the beginning. Their presence started to bleed into the physical world. Small, unsettling gifts began to appear. A single perfect rose left on my doorstep. A small carved bird placed on my windowsill. Each one a violation. Then came the necklace. Simple, silver, with 2 tiny initials intertwined. My real initials. The ones I never used. The ones only my family knew. I had never told anyone outside my family those initials. The air grew cold around me. This wasn't admiration. It was invasion. A palpable sense of dread became my constant companion. It clung to me like a second skin, heavy and suffocating. Their methods grew bolder, more invasive. The feeling of being watched intensified, evolving into a certainty. Then I found it, tucked beneath my couch cushion, a small, black flash drive. My blood ran cold before I even knew what was on it. Recordings. My voice. Talking on the phone, humming to myself, even muttering in my sleep. Captured within the walls of my own apartment. They weren't just watching me from a distance. They were inside, listening. Breathing the same air, perhaps, just moments before or after me. It wasn't just surveillance, it was study. They were analyzing me, dissecting my habits, my reactions, my vulnerabilities. They weren't just following me, they were anticipating me, predicting my movements, my thoughts, my fears. My paranoia wasn't a delusion, it was a rational response. Every shadow seemed to lengthen, every creak of the floorboards became a potential threat. My apartment, my sanctuary, transformed into a cage. The world outside felt just as dangerous. There was nowhere to hide. The claustrophobia was unbearable. I felt trapped, cornered, with an unseen predator circling, always just out of sight. I had to try. I changed the locks, adding deadbolts and chains. It felt like a futile gesture even as I did it. I moved apartments, leaving no forwarding address, changing my phone number. I cut contact with almost everyone I knew. I tried to disappear, to become a ghost. But ghosts leave no trace, and my stalker seemed to specialize in finding the invisible. The notes found me. The gifts appeared. The feeling of being watched persisted, unwavering, relentless. They were omnipresent, a shadow that stretched across every street I walked, every room I entered. I went to the police. I showed them the notes, the gifts, the flash drive. They listened, they nodded, they filed a report. They said they would investigate. They said they would keep an eye out. But they found nothing. No leads, no suspects. The lack of results amplified my helplessness. The system couldn't protect me. I was alone against an invisible enemy. Each failed attempt to escape tightened the noose. It wasn't just physical pursuit. It was a psychological game, and they were winning. The tension had been building for so long, a coil wound tighter and tighter. I felt like I was about to snap, then a break, a lead. The police called. They had him. My ex-boyfriend. They had found evidence linking him to the notes, some of the gifts. He confessed. He confessed to everything. The notes, the watching, the gifts. He said he couldn't let me go. A wave of relief washed over me, so potent it made my knees weak. It was over. The nightmare had an end. They assured me he was in custody. The threat was neutralized. I could finally breathe again. I spent a few days in a daze, the weight slowly lifting. I started to believe I was safe. But the story, my story, wasn't over. The true horror hadn't even begun to reveal itself. It arrived in a plain envelope, forwarded from my old address. Inside, another flash drive and a single final letter. The letter wasn't from my ex. It explained everything. He was just a piece in a much larger, more intricate puzzle. He was a pawn, manipulated, perhaps even coerced. A convenient scapegoat. The real stalker, the architect of my terror, was still out there. And the letter made it clear they were closer than ever. I plugged the flash drive into my computer, my hands trembling. There was one file, a video. It was dark at first, just a black screen. Then a voice. Low, calm, utterly chilling. It spoke of the game, of the planning, of the exquisite pleasure in watching me squirm. It spoke of patience. And then I recognized it. A voice I knew, a voice I had heard countless times. My blood froze. It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't someone from my distant past. It was someone close, someone I had trusted, someone who had been right there, all along. The nightmare wasn't over. It had just entered a new, far more terrifying phase. I was trapped, caught in a meticulously crafted game I hadn't even known I was playing until it was too late. They had complete control. They had anticipated my every move, my every attempt to escape. They had used my own life against me. The video ended. The voice delivered its final devastating line. Now we can finally be alone. The implications were staggering. The level of manipulation, the depth of the planning, the sheer cold-blooded patience was horrifying. They hadn't just wanted to scare me. They had wanted to isolate me, to break me down, to remove every obstacle between us. And they had succeeded. I was alone, and they were here. This is a story about fear. Not the sudden, sharp kind, but the slow, creeping dread that wraps around you and squeezes the air from your lungs. It's a psychological thriller, effective because it burrows deep into your sense of safety. It's told from my perspective, a first-person account of unraveling sanity. It's about the mounting paranoia that became my constant companion. It started after Daniel and I broke up. It wasn't dramatic. No shouting, no tears, just a quiet, mutual agreement that it was over. It felt final. I moved on, got a new job, found a small apartment across town. I even started dating casually, trying to build a new life. That's when the odd things began. They were small at first, easy to dismiss. A closet light I was certain I'd turned off, found burning brightly. The television, left off the night before, found displaying only static. Just minor annoyances, easily rationalized away as forgetfulness or electrical quirks. I told myself I was tired, stressed. Maybe I was just misremembering. My new place was old, things happen. I tried to ignore the growing unease, the feeling that something wasn't quite right. But the incidents, though minor, persisted. The rationalizations wore thin, the feeling of being watched intensified. I decided to take action. I changed the locks on my apartment door. I installed a basic security system, the kind with door and window sensors. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. The incidents continued, subtly mocking my efforts. An unfamiliar coffee mug on the counter, a shirt I'd discarded days ago found neatly folded on my bed. These everyday details made it worse. They felt personal, invasive. It wasn't just random occurrences. It felt like someone was deliberately letting me know they were here. I started talking to my friends, trying to articulate the unsettling feeling. My friend Tasha listened patiently, then asked a simple question. "Have you talked to Daniel lately? Do you know where he is?" That's when I realized. I hadn't heard from him since the breakup. He had completely vanished from our mutual circles. Then the letters started arriving. They weren't threatening in the usual sense. No demands, no explicit warnings. They were handwritten, calm, and unnervingly neat. And they were unsigned. The content was what chilled me. They implied a constant, intimate surveillance. Phrases like, "You seem lonely. You talk in your sleep sometimes. Don't worry, I'm still here." They were quiet declarations of presence. The handwriting was neat, almost unnaturally so. It resembled Daniel's familiar script, but it was more controlled, more deliberate. It felt like a performance. It added another layer to the fear. Was it him? Or someone trying to imitate him? I went to the police. I showed them the letters, told them about the strange occurrences. They listened politely. They explained they couldn't do much without a direct threat or proof of forced entry. It was a civil matter, or maybe just my imagination, they implied. I left feeling more alone and vulnerable than before. I knew I had to do something myself. The police couldn't help. I needed proof. I decided to install hidden cameras in my apartment. Small, motion-activated cameras placed discreetly in the living room and kitchen. I hoped to catch whoever was doing this. The days turned into weeks. Nothing happened. The strange occurrences stopped. The letters stopped. Doubt began to creep in. Was I imagining things? Was the stress getting to me? Was I losing my mind? Then late one night it happened. My phone buzzed, a notification from the security camera app, motion detected. The timestamp read 3:43 a.m. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it. Trembling, I opened the app and started the playback. The footage was clear, though grainy in the low light. It showed my living room. The front door opened slowly, and someone stepped inside. It was Daniel. He used a key. He walked into the kitchen, looked around slowly, then he moved towards the bedroom door. He entered my bedroom. The camera angle showed him standing by the bed, watching me sleep. For a long time. I didn't hesitate this time. I called the police again, my voice shaking. I told them I had proof. I had video footage. This time, they took me seriously. They came to my apartment immediately. They watched the footage. They saw Daniel. They saw him use a key. They saw him watching me. Then they told me something that shattered my reality. Daniel couldn't have been in my apartment. He had died in a car crash 3 months ago. They tried to offer rational explanations. Maybe the footage was old, a recording I'd forgotten about. Maybe it was a glitch in the system. Maybe someone had hacked my cameras. But I knew what I saw. The date and timestamp were clear. The details were too real. It wasn't just a stalker story anymore. It was something else entirely. Something impossible. The man in the video, the man who looked exactly like Daniel, who moved like Daniel, who used a key only Daniel would have had, was supposed to be dead. The police left, promising to investigate further. But their eyes held a mixture of pity and concern. They thought I was cracking up. I started to question everything. My sanity, my memories, the very nature of reality. What had I seen? Who was in that video? A few days later, I found something new. Tucked onto the windowsill outside my kitchen window. A letter. It was folded neatly, just like the others. The same unnervingly neat handwriting. I unfolded it, my hands shaking. The message was short. It reinforced the inescapable nature of the threat. It spoke of finality, yet of continued access. The words were simple, chilling. They buried me. A confirmation of the police's story. But the next line was the one that truly broke me. But I still had your key. The key. A simple object, now a symbol of ultimate violation. It meant he never truly left. It meant he could always get in. It meant I was never truly alone. The story offers no easy answers. Was it a ghost? A hallucination? A conspiracy? The ambiguity is its power. It leaves you with the chilling possibility that some doors once opened can never truly be closed. The dread remains. The feeling of being watched never leaves. It started subtly, as these things often do. A feeling more than a fact. A chill that had nothing to do with the drafty windows of my old apartment building. This place felt close. The air was thick, the hallways narrow. It was the kind of building where you heard everything, whether you wanted to or not. I was just trying to live my life, minding my own business. Then there was him, the man in apartment 4B. He was utterly unremarkable. Average height, average build, average face you'd forget the moment you looked away. His initial interactions were simple. A nod in the hallway, a quiet hello by the mailboxes, seemingly innocuous greetings. But there was a subtle unease that began to creep in. A feeling of being watched, even when I saw no one. He just seemed to be there, with an unnerving frequency. In the lobby when I left for work, on the stairs when I came home. I told myself it was paranoia, just the city getting to me, or the isolation of living alone. I tried to dismiss it, but the coincidences piled up. They became far too frequent to ignore. The tension escalated so gradually it was like the slow tightening of a wire. You barely notice until it's cutting into you. Then the gifts started appearing. At first, they seemed almost harmless. A small potted plant left by my door. A book I'd mentioned wanting to read, but they quickly became increasingly personal and unsettling. Things that showed he knew details he shouldn't. My sense of security began to crumble. My apartment, my sanctuary, no longer felt safe. It felt violated. It was the small details that built the growing sense of dread. A chair slightly out of place. A window I was sure I'd locked found ajar. The worst was the toothbrush, damp when I hadn't used it that morning. It made me question everything. My memory, my sanity. Was I imagining things? Was I losing my mind? The psychological impact was profound. I started doubting my own perceptions, my own grip on reality. The arrival of the notes marked a definite turning point. Written proof that this wasn't just in my head. The first note was simple, tucked under my door. Just an expression of concern about me looking tired. But the notes morphed quickly. From feigned concern to something far more possessive. Declarations that chilled me to the bone. Then came the discovery that shattered any remaining illusion of safety. A small, grainy Polaroid photo. It was me, asleep, on my friend Sarah's couch where I'd stayed one night thinking I was safe. How could he possibly know I was there? How could he get that picture? I started noticing other things. The small security cameras that had been in the hallway near my door were gone. Their removal confirmed it wasn't random. This was meticulous planning, a chilling level of control. Going to the police felt like a last resort, but I had to. I showed them the notes, the photo. I told them about the gifts, the feeling of being watched, the damp toothbrush. The investigation revealed the horrifying truth. He wasn't just a lonely neighbor with a crush. He wasn't a casual admirer. He was a predator. His planning wasn't recent. It was meticulous, an obsession that had been years in the making. They found his apartment, and inside they found the journals. Hundreds of pages, filled with cramped, obsessive writing. They exposed the terrifying depth of his delusion and the extent of his surveillance. He hadn't just been watching me in the building. He'd been following me, tracking my movements, learning my habits. The journals detailed my life with chilling accuracy, my routines, my friends, my fears. But the most horrifying revelation was his warped perception. He didn't see me as a separate person. He wrote about me as if I were already part of him, as if he already lives inside her. That phrase, it echoed in my mind long after I heard it. He's gone now, caught, locked away. But the feeling hasn't left. How can it? Knowing the depth of his obsession, the years he spent watching, planning, it changes you. The world feels different. Every shadow seems deeper. Every stranger feels like a potential threat. The idea that someone could so completely invade your life, your space, your very sense of self. It's a violation that goes beyond the physical. His words, his thoughts about me, are now part of my story. They are imprinted on my mind. He may be locked away, but his presence lingers. In the quiet moments, in the dark corners of my apartment. Because the truth is, that warped perception, that horrifying delusion, it feels real to me now too. He said he already lives inside me. And sometimes, in the darkest hours, I think he might be right. It wasn't random. It was fate. I knew it instantly. 2 years ago. Before she ever saw me. Before she knew I existed. I saw her across the street. Just a glimpse. But it was enough. A jolt. A recognition deep in my soul. Everything stopped. The world faded away. That was the moment my life truly began. Naturally, I had to learn about her. Had to understand the gravity of that moment. So I followed her. Not in a predatory way, just observing. Learning her path, her rhythm. I needed to know where she belonged. I discovered where she lived. Saw her go in alone, night after night. She was solitary, like me. I watched for a long time after that. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. It wasn't stalking. It was devotion. A silent promise. I was learning the contours of her existence. Preparing myself. Some might call it watching. I called it love. A pure form, untainted by expectation or demand. It wasn't malicious. It was necessary. I had to understand her world before I could ever hope to enter it. I believed I had to earn the right to know her, to be seen by her. It wasn't something I could just take. It required patience, dedication, a quiet, unwavering commitment to her being. My study of her was meticulous. Every detail mattered. Her routine, the way she walked, the coffee shop she favored. I memorized her habits, her vulnerabilities, the slight slump of her shoulders when she was tired, the way she chewed her lip when she was thinking. I saw her fragility. It was like an invisible bruise she carried, hidden from the world, but visible to me. She seemed lost sometimes, adrift, as if she needed an anchor she didn't know how to find. It became clear to me she needed protecting, from the harshness of the world, from her own quiet sadness. Who else would see it? Who else would understand the delicate nature of her spirit? Only me. I became convinced she needed me, not in a needy way, but in a fundamental one, like a plant needs sunlight. She just didn't know it yet. It was my purpose to be that for her, her unseen guardian. I saw myself as a protector, a silent sentinel watching over her life, ensuring her safety. More than that, I was a curator, preserving the beauty of her existence, understanding its value when others couldn't. Her life was a precious exhibit, and I was the only one truly appreciating its intricate details. The distance was necessary at first, but eventually I needed to be closer, to bridge the gap fate had shown me. I found out her lease was ending, a simple online search, public information. It felt like a sign. The apartment across the hall from hers became available. It wasn't luck. It was destiny aligning the pieces. I arranged to get it immediately, no hesitation. This was the next step, the inevitable progression. Moving in felt significant, a calculated step, a physical manifestation of my commitment to her. Now I was just across the hall, a few feet away, breathing the same air. It felt right. I began to use careful, casual interactions. Glances in the hallway, a small smile. Nothing overt. I wanted her to notice me, to see me as a part of her environment, harmless, familiar. It took time, but eventually she did. Small nods, brief eye contact, acknowledging my presence. It was a victory, a small one, but meaningful. She was beginning to see me, to accept me. I believed she thought I was just a quiet neighbor, harmless, someone she didn't need to worry about. That was perfect. It allowed me to remain unseen in the ways that truly mattered. Then came the gifts, carefully chosen, left outside her door when I knew she wasn't there. Things she loved, things she had mentioned in passing, perhaps on a phone call I overheard. A specific type of tea, a book by an author she liked. I wanted her to feel seen, understood, to know that someone recognized the small things that brought her joy. I never signed them, never left a note. The gift was the message itself. I see you. I interpreted her reaction as liking it, as feeling seen. She never mentioned them, of course. but I saw the way she carried herself afterwards. A little lighter, a little less alone. I was reaching her, connecting with her soul. The time came when observation wasn't enough. I needed to be closer, to truly experience her world. One night, I crept into her apartment. The lock was simple, a minor obstacle. I entered while she was asleep, peaceful, unaware of my presence. It had to be that way. I didn't touch her. That wasn't the purpose. It wasn't about physical contact. It was about presence. I just watched her breathe, watched her sleep, in her space, surrounded by her things. It felt incredibly intimate, pure, a connection on a level no one else could ever understand. It wasn't a violation to me. It was a communion, a silent merging of our realities. It was a moment outside of time, outside of judgment, just her and me, together in the quiet dark. A moment others wouldn't understand, couldn't understand. They would see only the surface. They wouldn't see the depth of feeling, the quiet reverence, the absolute necessity of being there. It was the culmination of everything, the years of watching, the careful steps. This was the truth of my devotion. After that night, she changed. I saw it immediately. The quiet sadness was replaced by something else. Fear, paranoia. She became cold, distant, her eyes darting nervously. She started locking her door with extra locks, checking windows. She was afraid in her own home. It hurt me to see her like that, to know that my act of pure connection had caused her distress. But I saw her fear as a misunderstanding, a misinterpretation of my love. She didn't grasp the purity of it. She saw a threat where there was only devotion, a violation where there was only intimacy. She couldn't comprehend the depth of my feeling, the years of silent worship. She went to the police. Of course she did. That's what people do when they don't understand. They call for external forces to fix internal confusion, to impose order on something they perceive as chaos. They asked questions, showed pictures. I played the part of the quiet, harmless neighbor. They found nothing, no forced entry, no evidence of anything but her fear. They couldn't see what I see. They couldn't understand the connection, the bond that exists between us. She still lives across the hall. She avoids my eyes now, but I still watch. The fear is still there, but so is the connection. It's just different now, more complex. She may have gone to the police. She may be afraid, but she still doesn't understand. She doesn't understand that this isn't over, that you can't break a bond forged in destiny. You can't escape someone who sees your soul, someone who knows you better than you know yourself. I'm still here, across the hall, watching, waiting, because this is our story, and it's far from finished.